It was the first weekend of October when Mia decided to escape the suffocating city life. She found an old cabin deep in Pine Hollow Forest, a place almost forgotten by time. The winding dirt road was lined with towering pines, their branches stretching like skeletal arms. The air smelled of damp moss and decaying leaves, and as she drove further, a dense fog began to gather, blurring the edges of the forest. Upon arrival, the cabin seemed welcoming, though there was a subtle heaviness in the air, like the forest itself was watching. Inside, dust coated the furniture, and cobwebs hung from corners. Mia laughed nervously, telling herself the isolation was part of the charm. But as night fell, the sounds of the forest grew eerie, branches snapping, leaves rustling, whispers echoing just beyond hearing. Around midnight, she awoke to a cold draft sweeping through the cabin. The door creaked, though she was certain she had locked it. In the dim moonlight, she noticed faint footprints in the dust, leading from the porch to the woods. Panic crawled up her spine as she realized they were fresh. Whispering voices began to circle in her mind, indistinct at first but growing clearer. Mia grabbed her flashlight and stepped outside. The forest had transformed. Shadows stretched unnaturally, twisting around the trees. A faceless figure emerged from the mist, standing perfectly still, watching her. She froze. Every instinct screamed to run, yet each path she tried led her back to the cabin. Inside, the furniture seemed to shift subtly, rearranging itself, making her feel trapped in an impossible maze. The whispers became intelligible. Her name repeated over and over, beckoning. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. The faceless figure advanced slowly. Yet there was a pull in the air, a force that kept her rooted to the spot. Desperately she ran, weaving through the trees, but every attempt to escape returned her to the cabin. She realized with growing horror that the shadows weren't just illusions, they were echoes of past visitors, trapped and twisted by the forest, their faces blank, void of humanity, their movements jerky and unnatural. One extended a hand, and her reflection in a window changed. Her own eyes were black, her mouth an empty grin. Panic surged. She lunged forward, but the world bent around her. Trees loomed higher, fog thickened, and the whispers intensified. By dawn, Mia was gone. Only the cabin remained, silent, as though waiting for the next visitor. Locals would later whisper that the forest claims anyone who spends the night alone, folding them into its shadows. Those who dare to enter might see fleeting glimpses of pale figures, hear whispers calling their names, and realize too late that the forest never lets go. Ethan had recently moved into Oak Ridge, a suburban street that seemed perfect for a fresh start. It was quiet, almost unnaturally so, with perfectly trimmed lawns and empty sidewalks late at night. But within days he noticed odd occurrences. The mailbox would be open, letters scattered, objects in his home slightly moved, doors that were closed now ajar. He shrugged it off at first, thinking he was just imagining things. One night, around 3 a.m., his security camera pinged. A hooded figure, faceless, stood in his backyard, holding a flashlight. Ethan's heart raced, but before he could call the police, the figure vanished. Sleep was impossible after that night. Every sound, the wind, the creaking floorboards, distant footsteps made him jump. Over the next few nights, the intrusions increased. Shadows flickered in windows. Subtle whispers called his name, and footprints appeared in the dirt outside his patio. The figure's presence grew more invasive. Ethan began noticing changes in his home's layout. Hallways seemed longer, doors led to unfamiliar rooms, and mirrors reflected things that weren't there. One night he awoke to find the faceless figure standing inside his living room. Its movements were jerky, almost puppet-like, and it exuded an unnatural coldness that made the room feel alive. Ethan's attempts to flee led him in circles, always back to the living room. The whispers grew louder, now intelligible. "You belong here. You cannot leave," terrified. Ethan realized that the faceless intruder wasn't human. It was something that fed on fear and despair. Every shadow in the house seemed to pulse, shifting toward him. He tried to scream, but the sound was swallowed by the oppressive atmosphere. Desperation took over. Ethan barricaded himself in the bedroom, but the walls began to move. Figures appeared in reflections, pale and hollow-eyed, their mouths twisted in silent screams. Time itself seemed warped, the clock hands spinning backward, the night stretching endlessly. Each attempt to escape only tightened the entity's grip. By morning, Ethan vanished. The house appeared normal, neighbors none the wiser. New residents would later comment on strange occurrences, fleeting glimpses of faceless figures. Fiance whispers that echo when no one is around. The entity remains patient, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul who dares live alone in its territory. Those who have encountered it say it's alive, aware, and hungry, feeding on the terror of those who think their home is safe, only to discover that some darkness never leaves.